but it works. And I think people don't see that in themselves, and often you're that person that sees it in them.
Yeah, it's so true. I was just thinking of that as well because people do sometimes need their eyes opening to what other things they're good at as well. And it takes that outside person to like, you're good at talking to people, or you're a good listener, or how about going down that avenue? And I think it's such a shame where you meet someone who is incredibly talented in so many different fields, but they can't see it. I've met people in my life where they might be doing, say, one job, for instance, doing good at it, but they can't see what else they're good at as well. Thinking, how about that? Doing
They
your
can't
own,
ask that. They
they
can't see
can't.
past it. They think that's their life. No, but
Oh,
it's a career or a job, isn't it?
yeah, like what do you think that could be down to? Do you think that's because of maybe family making it go down one job, or friends saying you're only good at one thing, or
Limited beliefs.
hmm,
It's limited beliefs, and believing that you aren't worthy or you're not capable of doing other great things. Because I think I spoke to a young man yesterday. He's 27 years old. He's an engineer. He works for a construction company. He's a creative. He's a fantastic writer. He wants to become a singer-songwriter. He's been writing since he was 13.
wow,
Why he's not done anything with it, I don't know. So I've known him for a while. I mentored him a few years ago, but yesterday he called me and he was like, "There's something going on in my head. I can't figure it out." Okay, so when was the last time we wrote? It was about 8 months ago. So in this space of time, look what's happened. You
yeah,
know, people are at home, people have nothing to do. You're struggling to find peace within yourself. And I said, "What usually does that for you?" He goes, "Writing." "Why didn't you do it?" "Oh,
yeah,
I didn't think about that." But that's what heals. It's a healing process, is it not? He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's true." But all this time, he's wanted to change his career. In the whole time I've known him, he's wanted to change his career, but didn't feel like he had the courage or the confidence to tell his parents,
mm,
"I'm actually changing an industry. I don't know whether I'm going to get paid. I'm actually really talented, but you're gonna," and you have to look at it from a cultural and faith perspective as well.
mm,
Within certain homes, there are expectations of children and young people from their parents. My parents have invested in me, in my education. They've raised me. They pay for everything. I can't let them down.
mm-hmm.
You've got adults who, young people who are growing into adults who are now, maybe mid-20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, who are just realizing, I've lived my whole life as a lie. This is not
Yeah,
who I am.
yeah,
So I don't know. I just think I connect. I've recently connected with lots of people like that, especially men of
mm,
color. So many men who are now at that point where I've been alone in my house through lockdown, and it's been scary because I've realized who I am.
mm,
I, and I haven't said it out loud. This is the first time I've said it out loud, and I'm scared. And I've sat here and I've cried. I've never cried in my life. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's so many different emotions. It's allowing people to not only be themselves but also be seen. I see you. How can I help you? I
yeah.
think that we need to start doing, most definitely.
Most definitely. And talk about that kind of the issue with the men about like not crying before. I mean, I was talking to a good friend of mine on the podcast a few episodes back, Aaron Roach Bridgman, a really good
Mhm.
friend of mine who is a documentary maker, TV host, presenter, super lovely guy. And we're both talking about men not being able to come out with their emotions or talk about the stresses that they might be going through because men kind of have been portrayed or having this image of toughness or not showing their emotions. And I can't lie. I've
In control is how it would be.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're scared to show other people that yes, they can cry as well. They might show the kind of this tough exterior, this toughest shell. They're keeping everything in control. But yes, we have emotions too. And when I see like jokes about like men don't have emotions, of course we bloody got emotions. We're just like you.
But we've created a culture and environment where men aren't allowed to be vulnerable. That
Yeah.
it kind of boils down to that, does it not? No matter what age you are,
Mm,
unless you go through. So, for example, you've lost your father or you've lost somebody who's so dear to you, but because you're holding everybody else up, you can't possibly, become weak, or you
mm.
can't possibly show that you're sad. What happens? That sits here, right? That sits
Guys,
here.
right
That's
here. Yeah.
here. And
Mm,
then when it explodes around or to the people who care about you the most.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people like maybe they might go to things like drink or drugs because they can't show their emotions. I mean, I know we're slowly
How
coming
many
back.
people do we know that smoke weed
So there we
just
go.
to clear your head? It's
Yeah.
like, you know, the high is, you know, for a limited amount of time, and then what happens next?
Mm. I think
You're
this
again connected to your emotions, or you're not. Like, they're not going
it's true. Like, I just been brought up to like, get things off my chest because there's nothing better than getting things off your chest. I mean,
How do you do that? Who do you do that to? What do you
like
do?
family and friends. If I've got struggles going in my life, I talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if it's
But
on
what
your,
about the people who don't have somebody to talk to? What do you recommend for them? Because that's where,
you know, that's why I've always said to all my friends and family, so look, if you need to talk about something, I am here. If you want to talk, don't be embarrassed to call me. If you're stressing out, and that's why going back to what you said earlier about kind of sensing other people's kind of energies and stuff. I can sense when someone is not their usual self. If I know they're like normally like a bright person or energetic or happy, but then suddenly they're kind of like in the distance like this, they're thinking of something.
he's just dipped. Yeah.
Yeah, I take that minute just to like either put them to the side or like a little hug and saying, "Is everything all right?" And then they say, "Yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine." But I can sense
You can
something.
tell. You can
They
tell
can
this.
tell, and that's like, no. I said, "No, really, are you all right?" And then that's when they kind of like, oh, they call me like later or text me to let such and such has happened, and there we go. And then they feel much better. But going back to what you said earlier about the podcasting thing as well, just talk about it here, like we are now, just as two friends, just talking about things. It just feels so much better. You get so many things off your chest as well. And people shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about how they're feeling. Like if you're feeling like shit for whatever reason it might be, it could be the biggest thing, could be the smallest thing. As long as you talk about,
We often think that something that's major in our life has no value in anyone else's.
mm,
But it's amazing how when you speak up and speak out, how many people it connects to on so
yeah,
many different levels. And
so
a lot of
true.
it is about kindness, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
how can we be more kind to each other,
yeah,
um, and let people just be? There was a young man I met a few years ago, and he was excluded from school for smoking, and he ended up in a Peru. And when I met him, it was a lot later, and he left the Peru with 11 GCSE. So this kid was smart. He
wow.
went to study engineering, and he was really, really smart. When I met him, he had a daughter, and I don't know what it is, but I spend a lot of time with young boys who just come and sit and talk to me, and that it
Mm,
happens all the time. And there was a group of young boys sitting with me, and he came and sat down. And he was like, "Oh, so what are you talking about? Like, why are these boys sitting talking to you?" And then I just said to him, I said, "How are you? Tell me about you. You know, what are you doing here?" And it was a careers event that I was at. I was hosting a table at a careers event, and he came and sat down, and he's like, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Don't worry about me. I want to know what you do."
mm,
And he told me his story. He was like, "I was in a Peru. I got 11 GCSEs, and I wanted to be an engineer." And then he goes, "I had my daughter, and the only thing I could think about was I wish there was a man in my life who could tell me how to be a great man, who could
mm,
tell me how to love and care for my daughter, who can, just teach me basic things like how to listen,
mm,
how to care for people, how I should look after myself on a physical, emotional, and mental level. What do I need to know to be a healthy young man?" And when I was sitting there looking at this man, all I wanted to do was hug him, because these are simple things that we take, many of us take for granted because we have family around. But for those who don't, it's like, I don't have anybody. How do I ask?
mm.
Who can I go and ask? But where do you go? Where do we have these conversations? Do you not notice how whenever we promote something about young people, or if there's anything online about young people, it's often negative?
Mm. It's so
Now,
true.
why are we not even talking about all the great things young people are doing, especially young men are doing? All the great things that young men are accomplishing. And if we're talking about education, there's a lot of young people outside of education that are doing some fantastic things. I think Stormzy is a perfect example of greatness. Not only him, but his whole team are just beautiful, beautiful human beings. Everything he attracts, whoever he attracts, is just beautiful. And he shares that with the world. And you must be blind not to even feel it.
So
You,
true.
he's one of those people. You don't have to know him to feel his beauty. And I think young people, young men especially, have been missing that for a long time. And to have that and see that within somebody like themselves, a young person like themselves, is absolutely necessary. And we need to be celebrating young people more than we have been, because we obviously haven't.